But no worries. I think we're all ready to start.
Perfect. Okay, brilliant. So what we'll do is, I think we've got, a lot of participants. So what we'll do is we'll begin from just this short introduction from my side, and then we'll be leading on to our panelists. But I'd like to welcome you all today to our webinar on the importance of background screening and risk management, hosted by the CRI group. Thank you all so much for making the time to attend. I'm Sadia Rahman, your host and moderator for the session. We are so privileged to be able to have a distinguished panel of experts joining us today who will be sharing their valuable knowledge and experiences in the field of background screening and risk management. So in today's fast-paced and interconnected world, businesses face numerous challenges when it comes to hiring, partnerships, and mitigating risks. So organizations need to make informed decisions when it comes to safeguarding their reputation, assets, and overall well-being. Now, this is where background screening and risk management plays a vital role. So today we'll be exploring the key reasons as to why background screening and risk management are critical for businesses across industries. And our panel of experts will be delving into various aspects such as legal and ethical considerations, best practices, emerging trends, and the impact of technology on these processes also. By the end of the session, you'll be equipped with a deeper understanding of how background screening and risk management contribute to organizational success, resilience, and reputation. Before we dive into the discussion, again, I'd like to express our gratitude for all of those who have attended. We at the CRI Group are committed to promoting and providing the best practices in the industry and fostering a culture of risk awareness among businesses worldwide. So without further ado, let's begin this enriching journey into the world of background screening and risk management. I encourage you all to actively participate and ask questions and engage in this interactive session. Towards the end of the session, we will have a Q&A, which will be led by our panelists. So please do save your questions for the end. Together, we'll explore the importance of these crucial processes and gain actionable insights to enhance our organization's safety, integrity, and success. Thank you once again for joining us, and let's make this webinar a truly valuable experience for us all. I'll now be passing it on to Ashley, our Senior Investigations Manager, who will be covering recent trends, case studies, strategies, as well as practices and legal and regulatory compliance. Over to you, Ashley.
Thanks, Sadia. All right, so I think I'm just gonna jump in and discuss the recent trends with the screening industry right now. Yeah, as mentioned by Sadia, these are the topics that we will be covering today. And after my discussion, after the legal and regulatory compliance and the recent trends and the case studies, we will be joined by our regional business development manager, Laura, and our HR director, Nilofar. So after the pandemic, we've seen a lot of cases where employment or resume fraud has been used or utilized by individuals to take advantage of organizations that do not have background screening in place. And according to the surveys that some organizations have conducted in the past years, there have been an increase of organizations considering or conducting background screening, putting it in place in their recruitment process, ensuring that they won't be victimized by individuals or candidates who are utilizing employment fraud or resume fraud and taking advantage of organizations. As you can see here, in 2021, I'm sorry, are you able to see my screen?
No, we're not.
All right, just 1 second.
Yeah,
Or,
now it's working.
all right, thank you. Um, Yeah, so as mentioned earlier, this is the recent trend with the background screening being put in place by employers or organizations. As you can see, the U.S. is still leading when it comes to putting background screening in place in their recruitment process. But we are also starting to see this increase in conducting background screening in different regions in the world. I myself can say that here in the Middle East, in the past 7 years, there's really been a significant increase when it comes to employment verification and education verification being conducted. 7 years ago, I would have to say, when you go to organizations and you introduce to them the idea of background screening, they're really it takes time for the organizations to consider the concept of putting this in place. But since the pandemic, and we've seen some cases of reputational damage owing to the lack of background screening, we've seen some increase in that front. Um, you can also see here that in the US, 95, not 94% of the organizations, they conduct criminal record check, whereas in non-US and UK organizations, they focus more on non-criminal record checks. And non-criminal record checks refer to education verification, identification verification, reference checks with line managers, and other scopes of work, which will be discussed later. Um, Now that we are, as we all know, we are now in the digital age, and information is instantly and readily available. And with that as well, companies are increasingly concerned about how their reputation could be potentially damaged if they're not able to manage or control um, the narrative that is out there based on the employee that they're hiring. And also there we can see now that in the recent years, some employers come to us and specifically requiring us to conduct social media check, just to ensure that the candidates that they're hiring are um, uh, culturally fitting the organization's um, uh, culture, and also they make sure that they do this to ensure that they're managing the reputation of their brand. Um, so now I'm going to share some case studies that we have encountered in the past years. So we have had one case where a certain individual was applied for a high risk industry position job, and this person had a really good qualification if you look at the CV, if you look at the reference letters. However, we are able to detect that this individual really had an issue with their previous employers, which was not detected by the former employer because they only conducted criminal check on this individual. This would have been addressed if that former employer conducted employment verification, degree verification, reference checks with the line managers, and also license verification. Because as you can imagine, in a high risk industry, we want to make sure that the individuals that we are employing are possessing the qualification, specifically the technical qualifications, to ensure that they are not harming or jeopardizing the community or the individuals around them when they're conducting or doing their jobs in this specific industry. In some industries where maybe technical qualification, or maybe we don't consider it as a high risk industry, we there's still a risk of our candidates or our employees breaching the privacy or the intellectual property rights of the organization. And we have also seen this case happen where where an individual accessed client information and confidential information as to how the organization operates. And we've seen an individual emailing details, confidential details to their personal email. And apparently, this individual already had a history of conducting this behavior with former employers, and this was not seen during the employment period or the recruitment period, only because there was no background screening conducted. This could have easily been detected if there was a reference check conducted and employment verification conducted with the HRs. And for the benefit of those who are not in the background screening industry, if we have HR professionals here and hiring managers here, the difference between the reference check and employment verification is really about professional reference check with line managers is basically tries to gain some insight on the overall work reputation or performance of the individual, whereas employment verification, you're really just obtaining the details of the individual's employment. So when was this individual employed? When did this individual leave the company? What was the job title, or what was the position that this person handled? Whereas with professional reference check with line managers, you get to have an idea of the strengths of the individual, weaknesses of the individual, how this individual work within a team. So this is just some of the information that you could or the organization could have obtained if this was done in a timely manner during the recruitment process. Now we will move on to the legal and regulatory compliance. Um, so we see legal and regulatory compliance in twofold. There is a role to be played from the employer's part, and there's also a role to be played from our part as a screener or investigator. And from the employer's part, specifically with the high risk industry, like I mentioned earlier, you could see this in um, health or medical industry. You could see this also in financial industry. These are industries that are heavily regulated, and that said, they are required. They're being overseen by regulatory authorities, and they are required to take utmost um, uh, care and compliance um, as to how they will protect their consumers. In the case of the healthcare industry, their patients. And with that, to make sure that they're ensuring or providing utmost security or safety to their consumers or patients, employers of these or employers within these industries need to make sure as well that they're employing the right people to do the job and face the patients, face their clients, face their consumers. And in industries where um, this is not or companies that are not taking this seriously could also be penalized. They'll be fined a really huge sum, and we've seen this in recent years as well. Um, another another role of the employer is especially in the transportation and aviation industries. They need to ensure that they're employing the right people, because also in these industries, um, you could easily jeopardize the health of individuals or the safety of individuals if we don't hire the right people. Let's say, for example, an engineer or an individual posing as an engineer and not having the right license for that, or not having the right qualification to build a road, for example, and leaving this task to that individual. That could really amount to a huge consequence, not only to the company but also to the people around these kind of projects. And another one is under legal compliance. We've already seen this negligent hiring claim happening in the US. Um, this is where when a company might face a lawsuit if there's an individual that posed any harm to the clients or to the peers or employees due to lack of screening. So these are risks that employers could face if background screening is not put in place during the recruitment process. Now, from our part, conducting screening and completing all the research and investigative work when our clients are hiring, we also have to take into consideration and really comply with privacy laws. And we've seen this in many countries already. And a part of these privacy laws, um, joiners are we are required to obtain appropriate consent from individuals or candidates. Without this, we wouldn't be able to proceed with the background screening. We need to make sure that our candidates or our individuals are aware of the purpose of the screening. If they have informed us that they would not want a specific scope of work to be conducted on them, there are specific grounds where this will have to be considered. And another is handling personal identifiable information, which is PII. We need to make sure that all of these all these pieces of information are safe and secured and are not just shared to individuals without authorization to gain access to such information. And another one is data retention and disposal. This is always something that we agree with our clients. Most of the time, we are required to dispose the information or the data that we have on the candidates in within 8 months to 12 months. This is to ensure that we're not using the information or the data of the candidate that we have screened beyond the purpose or the scope of the screening that we have informed the candidate about. And another point is ensuring compliance when we are transferring the data from one office to another. And again, this is not always the case. And if it is the case, we will have to inform our clients and the candidates that we are screening that there will be a need to transfer the data from one place to another. And we need to ensure that wherever wherever that might be, that office or location is also complying with the data privacy laws that we are trying to comply with or adhere with. So these are the considerations that organizations have to look into when trying to put in place this mechanism of risk management to address human risk factors. Now I'm going to move on to sharing the other part of the session with Laura. She's going to discuss risk management strategies and best practices.
Hi, Ashley. Thanks. And thanks everyone for being here. So risk management strategies and best practices. So it is important for us to understand what is the main risk that the organizations are facing right now, and that is the human factor. So what we're gonna look at next in the next slide is how we can combat the human factor with. Can you please move to the next slide? Thank you. How can we combat the human risk factor with the employee integrity programs? So why should HR institute these employee integrity programs? Because this is a form of supporting the organization, the risk management of the organization to protect themselves, to ensure that whoever they're looking to hire is someone that is an honest employee that will encourage the internal controls, and that it will ensure that everyone within the organization abides by the best practices. So the employees that are in the organization will have to continue uh, um, having a strong set of ethics, and that builds good visibility and effective deterrence. So when you know that these are areas that are placed in the organization as a practice, employees are looking at their behavior and ensuring that they are doing their best to maintain the values that the organizations have. So it also protects the organization's reputation, because if you have cases where an employee has done a malpractice, not necessarily within the organization but outside, these can come up in the media and then also have a bad reputation on the organization. So also reduces the risk to the bottom line. So your risks are increasing the more or the lesser you have internal controls and policies in place. Your risks are higher, because you're not having the visibility, you're not looking into what are your employees doing, or the background of those employees. So also protects the corporate resources, as Ashley has shared some examples. Also it helps protect the resources of their company, their IP in certain cases, and enhances the values of the company. This is mainly for organizations that are looking into seeking investments, looking at mergers and acquisitions, or as joint ventures. Next, please. So why the HR should institute these employee integrity programs? So as you have been hearing, there's a lot of opportunities for employees to that have negative behaviors to conduct certain not ethical practices, and to minimize these things like fraud, theft, negligency, having violence in the workplace. um, Also looking at the claims, so we've seen situations where there is some malpractice or wrongfully use of the insurance, especially in this region where we have the insurances that are part of the company's policies, and to be working within the company, we need to have the insurance from the company. There have been cases that the there are candidates or there are employees that are misusing those facilities. So this is also something that is a risk that sometimes HR doesn't really realize. Non-performance, so looking at those employees that you probably, okay, you look into the previous roles, you understood that the person was hired for this date to this date in this company in this role, but perhaps you didn't check on the performance with the previous management, with the peers, or with the subordinates. So maybe the person was good as a subordinate but not good as a manager. Maybe wasn't very good a cooperative person with the peers, and these are areas that are identified with the performance, and with these reference checks that we conduct. Non-compliance is another factor. So can we move to the next, please? Okay, so what is employee integrity programs? So it's all about ensuring that you check the background of your employees. So we do have sort of the process is that ideally you look into the background initially before you hire an employee, and ensuring that they are competent, that they are no red flags in terms of their education or their previous roles, that their references check out, and then the other thing is that for those senior employees, what some practices are is that within the organization, the person, sometimes here people are working within anywhere. The organizations can work for 5 years, 10 years. So within those years, it's important to continuously every 3 years, every 5 years, depending on the seniority of the employees, to look into certain checks within the span of um, their employment. So some of the checks that we conduct. So for example, we do monitoring and surveillance. We do spot checks on ethics and compliance. In certain countries like US, there is a substance testing, abuse testing. So um, these are spot checks that they conduct. Risk analysis of the organization, whistleblowing and complaint mechanisms. So these are something that processes that you need to instill in the organization to ensure that if there is something going on within the organization, you want to create processes and policies that enable those ones that are seeing malpractices or seeing wrongfulness to have a process or to have a way to communicate that back to the HR or to the top management to ensure that the risks are mitigated within the organization. And structure exits interviews. So pretty much most of the organizations are conducting interviews, and this is a good way for you to identify areas of improvement, and understanding what the organization can work on for future replacements of those roles. Um, with regards to the strict standard operational procedures and maintaining the control over the organization. So again, this is we're looking at the systems, at the processes that we need to have in place within the organization. So Okay, thank you. So the pre-employment risk mitigation. So when we do the pre-employment screening, the companies need to look at thoroughly the background check of the new hire, and find out from where the person is coming from, when they from which day to the which day they work there, and why they left. Sometimes within the interviews, candidates mention that they left because of XYZ reason. When we go back and check, there could be a different story that we hear from the from the HR team or the senior or their management or the management. A story of employment and copies of the resignation letters. So that's not something that you should use as the reason why. Again, um, going back and checking why the person left is important. Okay, right. So in CRI, we have different levels of background screening, and we have something called level one screening, which is a basic one. We have basic, medium, and advanced, or we have different levels, and these are some levels that we have identified in terms of what the normally we get asked, and what is the standard globally also for certain roles. So sometimes we have new joiners, so people that are just graduated from college. We have also people that have worked in the past 2 3 years. They have some sort of experience. They're juniors, they're not managers, and then we have others that are managers, and then we have seniors. So we have identified different checks that we provide for these different levels. So these are sort of some basic checks. We do um, look into these checks and give different packages, so we can customize these packages. So in terms of the medium, we look into the degree, the verification, criminal check, the ID number, and we look at the past 5 years, and we look at their financial behavior. This is important because uh, if the person is going to be handling a budget or is going to be handling finance department, so it's important to understand their financial behavior, or if the person is working within the financial industry. So that's also something that is key to understand, that if they're going to be an advisor, that the person himself have a good financial behavior. We can go on the next one. Okay, so this comprehensive one, we do the checks similarly as the previous ones. We look into the last 10 years. We look at litigation checks. So litigation is different from criminal because sometimes there are disputes that the person can have with other organizations, previous companies, can be with other person, and these are in a different court. So the criminal court is different from the civil court, and we look into the litigation that are within the civil court. Um, Also, we look at ownership. So for example, here there's a lot of entrepreneurs that own organizations, and sometimes they have their own company set up with their trade license, and but they're also working somewhere else. So we look at the different licenses held, how those organizations the names of the organizations, and any specific information that we can find from there, that's provided to our clients. And we conduct a media research. This media research is to identify any reputational flags, and we research again on the bankruptcy records, because the higher they are in the hierarchy, um, the most important is to look into their financial management. Okay, right. So we have finalized our, yes,
Thank you so
our
much.
packages. Welcome.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Laura and Ashleigh. That was absolutely fantastic. And hopefully that gave everyone a really good insight into the kind of main key agenda for today's webinar, which really looked to cover the bare basics of understanding the importance behind background screening and risk management. What we'll be doing is now kind of shifting the focus from more of an informative approach, now moving into more of a HR approach. So we'll be moving on to our next panelist, Niloufar Gardezi, who's our HR BP and Associate Director, all the way from Pakistan. So we're very excited to hear from Niloufar, who will be covering a lot of information behind the importance of hiring the right individuals, also looking at the entire process of background screening and risk management from a HR perspective, shifting then again to a legal perspective, and then finally to a security perspective. So Niloufar, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sadia. Thank you for having me. So, guys, I'm Niloufar Gardezi. I'm the Associate Director and HR Business Partner for Pakistan Region for Corporate Research Investigations. As you know, we are involved in the corporate background screenings and EmploySmart services. Today, I'll be shedding some light on the importance of employee background screening in today's business environment. Having said that, I would like to introduce my session with the importance of hiring the right employees. So employee background screening is a critical step in the hiring process in today's business environment. You know why? Because the process involves checking the criminal record, employment history, right from educational credentials and other relevant information of the candidate to ensure that the organization is hiring the right person for the right job. So why do we basically need employee background screening from an HR perspective? As an HR manager, why would I need to conduct or to run an employee background screening whilst I'm hiring an employee? So by doing so, companies can avoid costly hiring mistakes. They can protect their brand and reputation and create a safer and more secure work environment. Having said that, let me shed some light on the HR perspective of employee background screening. So employee background screening is a critical step in the hiring process in today's business environment. Why so? This process involves checking the criminal record, employment history, educational credentials, other relevant information that is pertinent while you are hiring the person for the right job. By doing so, as iterated earlier, companies can avoid adverse hiring mistakes and protect their brand reputation. From a legal perspective, and when I talk about hiring or running a background check from a legal perspective, I would want to emphasize the importance of background screening because it can help organizations to mitigate potential legal and financial risks. By conducting thorough background checks, employers can minimize the risk of negligent hiring lawsuits, which can result from the failure to identify and prevent potentially harmful behavior by an employee. Employees are also required to comply with various state and federal laws when conducting background checks in different states that they're operating in, and failure to do so can result in significant penalties and legal consequences. Now, I would like to enforce the importance of employee background in the HR field. In today's business environment, it's critical for companies to ensure that their employees are trustworthy and pose no threat to the organization's security. That's only possible when you conduct significant employee background checks on them before hiring them. Background checks can help companies identify individuals who may have a history of criminal activity, fraudulent behavior, or other red flags that could compromise the company's security. By conducting background checks, companies can better protect their employee, customers, and assets. Finally, I would like to shed some light on the best practices that the organizations can have while they ensure that they run employee background screening checks. So as a business owner, if someone is a business owner or a CEO of a company, the background screening can attest to the importance of employee background screening because it's essential to know who you are hiring and to ensure that they have the right necessary skills, experience, and credentials for the job that you're hiring them for. With the recent air of unemployment and recession throughout the world, you might find people as you come across different people who are desperately looking for jobs, and they might portray or impose that they have certain skills. But if you don't run the background screening check on them, you may never be able to realize until you hire them that they're not fit for the job. A background check can help verify that the information provided by the candidate is not only accurate, but it can only give you peace of mind that you're making the right hiring decision as a stakeholder. Additionally, background checks can help prevent potential legal and financial issues down the road, uh, who can save your business time, money, and resources. So I think I have covered the HR perspective, not only from a legal point of view, but from a security point of view, from a best practices and stakeholders point of view, to emphasize the importance of employee background screening today. I'm open to questions with my group teammates. I'll be handing over the control to Sadia. Thank you, Sadia.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nila, for that comprehensive understanding of background screening and risk management from a HR perspective. What we'll be doing now is shifting the session more towards a Q&A. So we're opening up the floor to all of you, where you can utilize this time to speak with the panelists, to discuss any specific questions. Also, throughout the entire presentation, what we'll be doing and kind of post webinar, we'll be following up with all of these different information packs and following up with our different details that you can get in touch with us on. So if there are any questions, please do raise your hand and we'll pass over the Q&A session to you. And all of our panelists will be controlling this now, and we'll be closing with final notes in about 5 to 10 minutes. So if there are any questions, you can feel free to raise your hand and we'll have our panel answer any questions that you might have. I'm happy to see that. It was a very, very comprehensive webinar. Any questions from anyone? Perfect. Anza, feel free to jump in with your question.
Yeah. Hi. So I'm a manager at Motive. It's a NASDAQ-listed company, one of your clients as well. Just wondering, how does having background screening contribute to the profitability of the business?
Perfect. I'll pass over to Laura for this one.
Sure. Hi. So this ensures that your shareholders or stakeholders have an understanding that you are having the best practices in place to ensure that there is no risk of reputational damage on the brand and organization. So that's how you can support the organization in terms of profitability and building the trust and ensuring that your shareholders and the stakeholders believe that or understand that you're doing the best practices. Does that answer your question? Oh, thank you.
Amazing. Is there any more questions from anyone else? If you also have any questions that pop up in mind post the webinar, you can always reach out to our team of specialists who will definitely get back to you with any queries that you might have. But if there's anyone else that has any questions, feel free to raise your hand and we'll come over directly to you. Okay, perfect. If there are any questions, feel free to raise your hand until the webinar has ended. We'll definitely be taking more questions throughout the rest of the webinar. Right now, we'll be going more towards the final closing notes. If there are no more questions left, the Q&A session. Personally, I'd like to thank you all for making the time to attend this webinar. Hopefully, we've covered the importance behind background screening and risk management and given some insight into how this can really be a beneficial asset and tool that will help safeguard your business in the long run. Our panel of experts are always available to answer any questions or queries that you might have. And we'll be following up with all of the different information packs that have been presented throughout this webinar as well. Should you have any further questions, feel free to sign up to our different marketing platforms as well, our newsletters, our social medias, and also our QR code towards our website if you require, which will be presented at the end of this webinar. I'll now be passing over to our final speaker, Sumbul, who will be giving the closing notes before we end this webinar.
Hello, everyone. That was certainly an exciting and insightful session by Nilofer, Laura, and Ashley. Um, Pre-employment screening and risk management concepts are an inescapable tool for organizations looking to minimize risks, mainly because risks are a daily occurrence in most businesses, so a system must be put in place to effectively control them. The escalating figure of crime scenes and fraudulent incidents justifies why organizations take up this step of risk mitigation and background screening. Within the dynamic business environment we're operating in, corporations I've seen and our investigators have also noticed that corporations are more inclined towards being vigilant of the quality of employees they're hiring, vendors they're partnering with, and while making crucial business decisions. This is where corporate research investigation CRI group have got you covered. We've been committed to leading with diligence for over 3 decades. We've been facilitating businesses in proactively managing and uncovering risks to ensure sustainability of your organization. Um, I would just like to close this session by extending gratitude to all of you for partnering and participating in our webinar. And we look forward to connecting with you all again and working towards developing a compliant corporate culture. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
If there are any more questions, we are more than welcome to
we are
answer
here to
before we
answer.
close
Yeah,
it. I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Perfect. Thank you again, Sumbul. And yes, if you guys
Thank
do have
you.
any other questions, you can reach out to us directly across our website. Our contact information will also be provided at the end of this webinar. Thank you all so much for attending. We look to connecting with you all very, very soon. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
great day, everyone. Thank you,
Leave now.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you.